Arun Kumar Das has over 20 years of experience in talent identification, development, and management. He specializes in managing change and cultural diversity in a wide canvas of industries, especially in the context of mergers and acquisitions. His expertise lies in aligning people capabilities to enable business objectives. Arun has created strong synergies between performance management and employee development, ensuring that the business has competent internal talent pool to work in the challenging business scenarios. He does that by creating assessment systems and strong talent management tools to deliver results in a highly charged atmosphere. A strong advocate of the strengths based leadership, he has institutionalized a number of interventions whereby the talent management philosophy focuses on people synergies, bringing out the best on the platform. And Arun is also a frequent speaker in the talent development and management sessions as well as seminars. He is deeply involved in career counseling for youngsters as well as professionals, seeking career advice and contributes to the initiatives around the cause. Let's chat with him today on how Centennials should approach learning. This is the Guiding Voice podcast series, TGV for a Better Future. Friends, I am your host Naveen Samala, just a fellow IT professional, but a passionate learner on a mission to make the world a better place to live. Because through the Guiding Voice, we drive conversations that matter and conversations that add value to your life and to your career. Thank you so much for joining me. And Arun, hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice. And thank you so much for being part of the journey. I'm super excited to have you as a guest speaker today.
Thank you, Naveen. I mean, it sounded like the voice of God when you started. But yeah, thank you very much for having me on the show. Elated to share whatever little that I have learned or know. And looking forward to the next couple of minutes or possibly an hour of conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And in fact, just to set the context to the audience, Arun has trained my brother about 18, 19 years ago. And my brother is a big fan of Arun. And in fact, he recommended me to host him on Arun. And today I'm humbled to have him part of TGV. So Arun, without further ado, let's get started. Maybe can you share your career journey and highlight a few key milestones which helped you reach where you are today?
Sure. I did not plan my journey. I'll be honest about it. I started that I'm a curious human being. So I started where I started while in college, sold, I think, greeting cards to start with. That was the first job to earn a few bucks. That was the first earning. Post that, somebody introduced me to Indian Market Research Bureau, worked there, learned a lot. I continued my education along with that. In fact, took a detour from studying to be an engineer, and then I cut that off halfway through, or rather in the first year, gone back to a regular graduation college back in Bhubaneswar, where I finished my education. And I started off with sales, got into training because I chose to be on the other side of the table. The opportunities came knocking at my door for being in HR. So I got into HR, continued to have a strong focus in training, even while I was managing HR for IT companies. And then at some point in time, I took a decision to be in training. So I quit my job because nobody gave me a job as a trainer. Quit my job, prepared materials, went back to the organizations, became a freelance trainer for them. And yeah, the rest is history. I have been in training now in customer service, a couple of dashes here and there in HR, but training remains my first love. And here I am talking to you.
That's quite an illustrious journey, and I think you had an opportunity to be in sales, HR, and training, which you are continuing. In fact, I'm also so fascinated towards training. I train people on Lean Six Sigma and business improvement, business process improvement concepts and all, and it's so enriching experience that we come across as a trainer, and I can resonate with you on the passion towards it. And Arun, I'm also curious to know about your success mantra and what are the top 3 things that have helped you to be successful in your career so far?
Yeah, it's actually difficult to bring it down to 3 things. There are a lot of people who made me what I am today, and the things which have moved me to where I am today are, if I have to bring it down to 3, literally, is willingness to take calculated risks. I just talked about my career journey, and I have taken risks, but I've kind of taken calculated risk, I'll be honest. So that is one. The second one is very strong work ethics. I live for the ethics that drive me to do the job that I'm entrusted with or I've taken up. So that's the second, strong work ethics. The third one is adaptation to the changing circumstances. And I think I have seen from no communication tools to telephones at home to communicating over multimedia in a seamless environment. It has only been humbling to be in this era that I have been born in. But yeah, I mean, adapting to the continuous changing environment is the third one.
Hmm. Yeah, without adaptation, I think there's no future. Today, incidentally, I read an article and which was highlighting about dinosaurs. Dinosaurs ceased to exist just
Absolutely.
because they failed to adapt. Right. All right. So let's now jump into the core of today's conversation. In these days of instant gratification and binge watching and so much of media that is available at the fingertips, right? How should Centennials approach learning? Because their attention levels are very, very low compared to the previous generations and all.
Yeah, I mean, it's evolution of mankind, and they are in the best space today. The Centennials were born between what 1997 onwards. If you 1990s to about 2010. If you look at the change that has been fueled by multiple factors, right? Multiple factors, including the digital opulence that they have around them. I mean, look at it. I never had this, right? So that's kind of the major change, and that made them digitally savvy, and that's why we call them digital natives. In fact, if you look at them, they approach learning very, very effectively and use technology to their advantage. What they need to do, however, is continue to practice mindfulness in case they are not doing it already. Setting clear goals and priorities, because that's important. When you set out to on a journey, it is important for the centennials to know the end objective, right? Like Stephen Covey says, begin with the end of mind, begin with the end in mind. And if you don't give them that focus, if you don't let them have that focus, they're not going to be engaged. The next one is collaboration, and collaboration with peers and seeking out mentorship and guidance are the two other things that I would suggest that they build into their strategy, which is going to help them not only create definitive and effective goals, but also to go through the journey that they are going through. So, five factors I will paraphrase. One is practice mindfulness if you're on anything. The second one is use technology to the advantage that you need. Set very clear goals and prioritize them. Collaborate with peers with the fourth one, and mentorship is an ongoing process, irrespective of the generation that we're dealing with. My suggestion is mentorship is the fifth one that they should seek.
I think out of all these aspects, what I have noticed in my daughter herself, in fact, I have two daughters. One is in her ninth standard, and the other one is in third standard. The mindfulness, the attention span, and the mindfulness aspect, right? They don't do things with undivided attention kind of thing, and they keep asking the same question again and again, right? So that is one major problem I think which needs to be addressed. And thanks for bringing that up. And moving ahead, like in your
I'll just,
experience.
if I may,
Yeah, please.
sorry, if I may just add one more bit to that. I have two teenagers, 17 and 15. I learn quite a bit from them, and I have a slightly different perspective to what you just shared. Right, mindfulness comes because we want to practice mindfulness. Just try and figure yourself out as an artist. Try and figure yourself out as possibly a gig worker or a crowd worker, where you're required to be a disc jockey or a MC, the master of ceremonies and stuff like that. Now rephrase this entire statement, right? They are super curious, and that's what I love about this journey. And because they're super curious, the number of questions and they'll come back to the same point if they don't understand. right? And that's
Yeah.
that's the beauty of this generation. We or the previous generations, we had different focus, but these guys, this generation wants to learn and wants to learn seriously, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
want to absolutely be clear. So I just wanted to put that perspective in place because I see the two teenagers
Yeah.
at home,
Mhm.
their journeys, and it's quite enlightening, I must say.
Yeah, I can understand that, and thanks for sharing that as well. And now let's talk about in general, like since you have close to 2 decades or little over 2 decades of experience as a corporate trainer. So, what are certain mistakes that you have noticed that people make while learning? Right? Would you like to highlight something?
I would, in fact, make it slightly generic because these mistakes are done across generations. It is not only about Gen Z, it is about the millennials, the Gen X, and the baby boomers as well.
Yep.
Having said that, the way, and I'm talking about a global perspective, irrespective of the kind of education that one has gone through. One is don't go into an information overload, and this is something that is on the learning strategists or the content creators. Create small bites of information. And today is the world of YouTube's, TikToks, and Netflix. If you can't give them the information in the way they want it, the information is never going to get consumed. So do not overload, and we end up overloading ourselves with information while we are, especially quote unquote, learning. The second one is we focus too much of memorization. And this is, I understand this about the way education happened in India so far, and it is changing. I can see very, very blatant and honest efforts about it. A lot of education institutes are making this effort to make sure that it's not all about memorization. It is all about creating that connection, which is my third point, right? Most of the times we don't make connections. We retain information, memorize them, and then try to apply them while we are doing anything, whether it is gardening, whether it is cooking, or maybe corporate learning. We do not try and make enough connections. So contextualizing information is the third one. Practice, and practice. There is no word called enough practice. The fourth mistake is not practicing enough, and it is an essential part of the learning process. But if people do not practice enough, the long-term retention doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
Or the application of the knowledge at the work front or otherwise, it doesn't happen. The last one is fear of failure. I still, whenever I start any kind of a learning myself, I'm afraid what mistakes will I make. But that's something that comes naturally to the generation that we are talking about, Centennials. You guys are born with it, so make sure that you do not have a fear of failure while you are learning anything. So these are the 5 top mistakes that I would call out.
Mm-hmm. So this actually reminded me about Rancho character of Three Idiots. The way that guy
Absolutely.
establishes the school, right, out of the practical experience and all. And the other day I was sharing similar thing in one of the interviews, right? We have been focusing on the rote learning, right? It has to start at the basics because if we focus on the adult learning, the way corporate programs are designed, right? They have that particular retention levels which are higher compared to what we learn in the school because these are all activity based learning.
Absolutely.
Right. So on that note, as an individual, like let's assume I'm attending a workshop or a training, right? How can I retain knowledge for long? Like what should be my focus as a participant?
All right. I think it's important to understand that the practice or application is what makes the retention go a lot farther than it would be otherwise, right? Overall, if you have to retain knowledge for a long term, it's important to use something called a spaced repetition. The second one would be active recall. Third one, like I said, making connection. Fourth one is practice and teach. There is nothing, and maybe that is why I picked up teaching as a profession or training as a profession, but there's nothing to replace teaching or explaining it. And the last one, right? Not many people talk about it. Everybody is busy in their lives and doing more for less. Sleep. Get enough sleep. I will not define the number of hours everybody is built differently, but if you do not sleep, your brains do not, the nervous system in your brains, they do not work efficiently, right? So the neural system, I'm sorry, that's not nervous system. The neural system in the brain do not work effectively. So if you sleep properly, the rest of it, like I said, it will come to work. But just to explain for a better understanding, I would explain two things that I called out. One is spaced retention, or spaced repetition. That's a technique, and we need to learn that technique. That involves reviewing material at an increased intervals over time. So you set up a time saying that, okay, I will repeat this material, not only read that, right? And there are certain digital tools as well to do that. This technique helps to reinforce learning and improve the retention part. You must have seen flashcards being used in certain trainings, right? That
Yes,
is one of the reasons. Great. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why we use flashcards. There are other digital tools, including which is a post information or a post quiz with about 2-3 words, and that's where micro learning is used very effectively for using spaced repetition. The second one that I called out, Naveen, is active recall. Active recall. Yeah, that involves retrieving information from the memory rather than simply reading it. Rereading it, it's an optical illusion that our brain creates. But if you retrieve it from the memory while you are thinking about a concept, that will help you use that and create a muscle memory. What one can do to make sure that happens, there are enough and more practice tests, end of module practice tests, end of module quizzes, or there are exercises including focus groups, class activities, a peer group learning. All of that can be done to make sure that you are able to, not only retain but apply that knowledge on demand.
Cards are a great example to support the spaced repetition, and spaced repetition as well as active recall are the two techniques here. Wonderful, Arun. And now I'm curious to understand what are the must-possess soft skills for those aspiring to grow as leaders in their industry.
Awesome. And I'd like to just clarify something. Soft skills is not language at all. Language is just another skill above soft skills, right? And most often in my conversations, people take language as one of the soft skills. It is the communication that is the soft skill. And irrespective of the generation, that's important. So for Gen Z, the typical part of this Centennials as a generation, which I deeply respect and love, they have grown up with a social media access right from the day one, and they are digitally savvy. They have grown up with digital communication. The world of WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, whatnot, they are all on it. Snap. It is important that they develop a very, very strong verbal and written communication skills. Now, what happens is there is an advantage of knowing the language that takes you possibly 30% in your journey, but the rest of the 70% would be when you are articulative, when you know contextualization of communication, when you know your audience, and you're creating communication around the expectation of the audience. So the first one is communication. Second one is adaptability. This generation is known for the resilience and adaptability, which is a very, very valuable skill in this ever-changing world, right? And it's rapid, the changes that we've done. So they already have that skill called adaptability. Collaboration is something that they do by default. Gen Z is highly skilled at working in teams. So collaboration is the third. The creativity, again, they are a highly creative and innovative generation. Look at the number of innovative platforms or the products or the concepts that we have at this time and space. And it they should constantly engage in generating fresh ideas or challenging the status quo. There is nothing better than creativity, which would challenge the conventional thinking as well. The fifth and the most important part is emotional intelligence. whatever said and done, if you do not have an EQ, which is emotional quotient, that will not make you the right person or rather a good individual to connect with. So my top 5 skills, I would rephrase it: emotional intelligence, creativity, collaboration, adaptability, and communication.
Excellent. Very well summarized, Arun. And now I have a curious question, and which has been lingering on my mind for quite a long time. In fact, I don't know why I didn't check with the corporate trainers before, but I would like to take this opportunity to ask you this question. Like, I would like to understand whether you guys as corporate trainers provide any feedback to the management slash leadership about the potential talent from their company, okay, after delivering the workshops or sessions, saying that, hey, probably this XYZ person, right, is so good, and maybe you want to focus on him. Does that really happen?
All the time. I'll be honest with you, all the time. So, the business of a talent hunter. I'm not talking about in context of a consultant or a consultant who is a hiring guy. I'm talking about a talent hunter in the media space. So I had the fortune of working with a media space for 2 years, right? I came across a lot of people, including talent management guys. And one of the things that I learned from them while they travel in the local trains in Bombay or in the subs in London, while they are in a club or at a lit fest, irrespective of wherever they are always on the lookout for the right behavior, looks, and projection, and so on and so forth. Very early in my life, when I chose to be a trainer, this has been a constant expectation that we have from the people above. Tell us who's bright and tell us who's not participating. We have a term called EWS, early warning signals, but we also have a term which is called potential or high potential identification, HiPOT identification. Both of these are realities while we train, and the answer is a big one. Yes.
Thank you for letting me know. In fact, I was under the assumption that these guys will definitely share, but it is always better to hear from the expert directly. And now let's switch hats, like switching your hat as a career counselor as well as a coach. What trends did you observe in the last 2 to 3 generations, right from GenX, Millennials, and the Centennials, especially from the career planning perspective?
Awesome. So this is interesting, right? Like I said, this generation has had the career options like nobody else has. Who could have thought about 10 years back about Naveen being a podcaster and such a successful one? Who would have thought that the YouTubers or the influencers would be a career option for the generation? Yeah. Now, keeping all this, right, there are 3 generations that we are dealing with. Baby boomers are almost about to retire or have retired, but they are still in the gig workforce, which I really appreciate. Gen X, which is between, this generation is born between 1965 and 80. Just reflect back on their journey as professionals. They depended on creating a traditional career path. I'll be a doctor, engineer, architect, civil engineer, lawyer, corporate communication guy, advertising guy, anything, right? That generation chose a particular path and continued with that. They moved up the corporate ladder or the business ladder that they chose and prioritized job security and financial stability over anything else. This generation has always placed a high value on loyalty to their employers and their job tenure, right? So that's the focus that Gen X has had. Millennials, which is this generation is born between 81 and 1996. There's a very different perspective, and there's a major shift that we have seen in this. Often they have prioritized work-life balance, personal fulfillment, right? And the opportunity to make a positive impact on the world. The highest involvement on the corporate social responsibility or otherwise voluntary work, you would see millennials being involved or millennials starting off some of the GenX, including me, we have participated or gone into it, but that's possibly, if you ask me, has that been a priority over the work fulfillment or the security aspect? The answer is millennials are far better at that. They have always valued flexibility, remote work, and opportunities of personal and professional development and learning. Right. So that's the second generation that we've dealt with. Now, here comes the most interesting part about Gen Z. They enter the workforce with a very different set of expectations and priorities. They've grown up as digital natives, right? And they're comfortable with tech and social media. You would never see anybody hiding behind a wheel to not reveal their real side on the social media. They are absolutely honest and blatantly honest. They often prioritize their career paths that align with their values. Now, this is what I keep on telling, whether it is my hiring team or anybody who talks to me from the hiring space, is that create a purpose. Only then, if you are able to align that purpose with the person that you're hiring from Gen Z, will they value your offer? Otherwise, forget about it. There are multiple options ahead of them. So they often prioritize the opportunities which align with their values or their perspectives. They're always willing to take risks to pursue their passions. I mean, look at the last 2 years and look at LinkedIn. See how many people have moved houses to stay in hill stations or beach resorts. Or move permanently to those locations, and they are pursuing something completely different from what they were doing. I know at least about 24 people who are doing this, and they're doing very well for them. For this generation, the value is of diversity and inclusion, and they seek out environments that promote these values and also align to their perspectives about life and fellow counselors, saying that adapt to this changing trend and provide guidance that is tailored, right? Do not provide generic guidance saying that, hey, this is what I think. No, this is where I have seen this moving to. It is always data backed, perspective backed, and connect with what they want to do. So that's my 2 bits on what is it that I observe in the 3 generations.
Great observations, and you have shared a lot of valuable information. And this conversation has been so valuable as well as wonderful. And let's add some spice to the episode so that our audience will get to know other side of you, Arun. If you are okay, let me kick off a quick rapid fire round. Oh. All right. Yeah, here comes the first one. And I'm really curious to hear from the corporate trainer who is always on the other side, teaching and mentoring people. So have you ever slept in a classroom or a critical meeting?
You put me on a spot now. And I'll be honest, I haven't slept per se in a meeting or a classroom, but yes. Have I dozed off? The answer is yes. And yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
interesting. Okay, one thing that you would bring change in the industry today, given a chance.
Break the barrier and democratize careers. Promote gig workforce. We'll get better.
Yeah. Very few companies have started doing that. I think in about 5 to 10 years, everybody might get into that mode. But yeah, that's a wonderful change.
Absolutely. In my organization, we have taken a very, very big cognizance of that. In my past organization, as well as the current. Mm-hmm. There is a strategic effort towards that of building a gig workforce. Yeah, so that's important. But also, I think what the organizations need to do is promote ethical work practices and just be authentic. Be authentic about people experience. Don't just talk about it. Do something about it.
Yeah, good one. And can you describe yourself in just one word?
Humane. HUMANE.
And can you share a life incident? Can you share an incident that changed your life forever?
Okay. Almost about in the range of 2005, between 2003 and 2005 sometime. I don't remember exact dates. I had lost my eyesight on the left side. right? I was on a vacation with the family, and wife and I were on a trip to the local market there. This was in a hill station.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, I see the traffic light has a very different color, and I was like, "Wow, this is still within India. How is it that we seeing these different colors?" And she was looking at me with, saying that, "What's wrong with it?" I said, "You know what? I see orange is red, red as maroon, and green as blue."
Mm.
So I thought maybe I would have had a little lesser sleep the previous night.
Mm-hmm.
I took a
Mm-hmm.
nap in the cab
Mm.
for about 1 hour's drive or 1.5 hours drive. On the way back, I realized I have started seeing things in a very blurred manner, and by the evening, about 8:30, I had lost my eyesight.
Oh my God.
I called up my. I was working out of Calcutta those days. I called up my ophthalmologist,
Mm-hmm.
a very
Mm-hmm.
good friend as well, Samir. So I called up Samir saying that, hey, this is the problem, and what do I do? He said, take the next flight and come back. I want to get a checkup done. Did a checkup. He sent me to a hospital I wouldn't name.
Mm-hmm.
They told me that you need to go through a surgery immediately. And I was slightly skeptical. So I took a
Mm-hmm.
second opinion in a different hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here comes the fun fact. What I was told in the first hospital is because of my lifestyle,
Okay.
I have lost the eyesight and I need to go through a surgery, change the retina. I mean, replace the retina if required and then come back. The second one, the hospital that I went to this time, there was a Malaysian doctor who was HOD. He was the head of department of the hospital. And then I went and showed it to him. He said, you know what, there's nothing wrong with it. And I was devastated saying that, hey,
Yeah.
at such an age, when I have to see the world, I have lost one of my eyes. And he said that there's nothing wrong. He gave me a reason why it happened. He said, you're just too stressed. And I remember those days I used to go to office at about 4 in the morning,
Mm.
and I used to come back at about 1 o'clock, sleep for 1.5 hours, freshen up, and go back again. So such was the need, at least in my head, and that is something that impacted the blood to flow with such a force that actually couple of cells burst behind my retina, and that
Oh
is
my.
why they had created a layer. And he said that I have two options in front of you. One,
Mm-hmm.
you understand this, that it is stress related. You work with your stress, and this will never come back to you if you can identify what happened. The second one is, of course, uh, is I'll operate and you will be done with it. So I chose the first one, and it's been almost about 17, 18 odd years. I've never gone back to that stage, but I've understood stress is something. So yeah, with the two options, I thought over it. I said the first option looks better, but it took me a whole almost about 3 to 4 months
Mm.
to get adjusted to that, adapt to that change. That day and today, I follow something called choose what you can impact. What's in the circle of influence, not beyond. It's helped. So yeah, that was a major life changing insight.
It sounds so scary, Arun. Like, I think it's a time for all the professionals to pay attention, not to get stressed too much. And I'm coming across this kind of incident and this kind of impact for the very first time. So stress can lead to anything, including loss of sight. So scary, and I'm glad that you took the right decision by approaching the right doctor at the right time, right? So kudos to the doctor as well for giving the right advice and providing right treatment as well. Wonderful. So this has been great rapid fire, and let me fire the last one out of the rapid fire. What is one electronic gadget that you like to see or invent yourself?
So many. You want me to state one?
Yeah.
It'll be a time machine. I love to see a time machine come to reality and travel the time. Yeah,
Would you like to travel to the past or the future?
both. I'm a curious human being, and I'd love to see what was there, what created us, and what are we looking at going forward. So yeah, I'll be a nomad traveling both front and back.
Yeah. In fact, many of my guests wish to have either time machine or teleportation. So both are still among the top two fantasy gadgets. And I wonder it comes true and it becomes a reality. And that was a great rapid fire. And, let's flip back to the mainstream. And before I let you go, one final question for today's conversation. So, Arun, what will be the final message to our audience, okay, which you want them to carry home?
Now, I would assume that the audience would not only include the Gen Zs, but across all generations.
Yes,
the first and the foremost, be authentic, guys. There is no better quality of a human being, beyond being authentic. So being authentic, focus on creating experiences. And I'm not talking about employee experience over here. I'm not talking about customer experience over here. Create experiences for everybody or anybody you come across on a day-to-day life. And the third one, don't take life seriously. It's just a life. Do everything that you want to do, everything that you want to see, be, and look beyond. So that would be that is my learning, and just sharing those learnings. I'm nobody to advise anybody, but that's something that I would leave you with.
Simply fantastic. Mind-blowing thoughts over there. And Arun, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And in fact, you have exceeded my expectations. When my brother had mentioned about it, by that time itself, I know this will be a super hit, and it is much more than that. Thank you so much for
your time. Thank you so much. Insights. Thank you.
All right. So, friends, that was our episode with Arun Kumar Das, and you can connect with him on LinkedIn. Please refer to the show notes or the video description for the link. And before we move into the trivia section, here's a request to you. In case if you haven't subscribed to us, please subscribe from the app wherever you have tuned in from. Also, if you have loved this episode and found the conversation useful, request you to share with at least 3 of your friends or colleagues who can benefit from the guiding voice. Thank you so much in advance. Now, let's hop into the trivia segment of today's episode. Today, we had a great conversation with Arun on Centennial learning. So I would like to bring a few facts about Gen Zs, who are also called as iGen. And these are the facts based on an article published by genhq.com. And iGen typically are those who are born after 95, and in some references, they also call as people who are born after 1997 as well. And this generation is presenting a whole new set of skills as well as challenges to its parents, marketers, employers, and the world at large. In fact, Arun has shared a few facts about them in terms of their learning approach and the kind of curiosity that they demonstrate and all. And in addition to that, here are a few points which I would like to share with you guys. First and foremost is members of iGen do not remember the attacks of September 11, which is popularly known as 9/11. And for them, it is a history. And these guys are into extreme connectedness. Even the virtual reality is very much a part of their daily lives at work, play, and also in relationships. And YouTube is a television network with its own celebrities. And iGen's parents are millennials as well as Gen Xers. And they think that millennials are old, seriously. And if you have any interesting fact to share about Centennials, please comment on social media wherever you found this episode. That's all for today. Thank you so much for joining me. And folks, also do not forget to share your topic recommendations and guest speaker suggestions through social media or email us at theguidingvoiceforyou@gmail.com. I'm your host, Naveen Samala, just a fellow IT professional and a passionate learner on a mission to make a difference in the lives of millions across the globe, on a mission to make the world a better place to live through the conversations that matter and the conversations that add value to life and to your career. Until next time, bye-bye. See you all in the next episode with another wonderful